Easter Island is famous for its stone statues of human figures known as Moai, which literally translates to statue. Now, the island is known to its inhabitants as Rapa Nui. And according to archaeologists, the Moai were probably carved to commemorate important ancestors, and that they were made from around 1000 AD to the second half of the 17th century. Over a few hundred years, the inhabitants of this remote island quarried and carved and erected over 887 Moai. The size and complexity of the Moai increased over time, and it's believed that Hoa Hakananaya here dates to around 1200 AD. And this Moai is one of only 14 Moai made from basalt. The rest are carved from the island's softer volcanic tuff. And with the adoption of Christianity in the 1860s, the remaining standing Moai were toppled. Now, we don't believe this narrative at all, and we're going to show you some pretty compelling evidence to suggest otherwise. The first being that basalt is exceptionally hard, and the people of this island did not have the technology to carve basalt. So there is no idea how the people of Rapa Nui could have carved this basalt. They could have carved the soft volcanic tuff, which are the majority of the Moai, but these basalt Moai is what we're going to focus on. And this one specifically. Now, did you know that most of the larger Moai specifically, and especially the ones made of basalt, are actually buried, and they have entire bodies? Yeah, it's absolutely mind-boggling. The Easter Island bodies are hard to find, meaning the pictures aren't readily available and they're not talked about a lot. But some of the statues are absolutely enormous and have amazing bas or bas relief carvings on their backs and their heads. Here is a statue that's clearly over 30 feet long. And some of them are even bigger. Here's a picture of Thor Heyerdahl and an expedition. Look at how deep this baby was buried, and look how big it is. There is no way the islanders at Rapa Nui could have moved this giant monolith. No way. And why is it buried 27 feet deep? In order to get, if you calculate the deposition on this island, it would take over 10,000 years of weathering to bury a statue this deep, just sitting there. Over 10,000 years. These are no small feats. The explanation the archaeologists give are unbelievable, meaning not even believable. And yet, that's what we teach everyone. Now, some of the carvings on the backs of the basalt Moai are so significant, it makes you wonder how they were even capable of making these types of carvings because of the solid nature of the rock. Moreover, many of the carvings resemble identical bas-relief at Gobekli Tepe, a site that dates to at least 11,500 years ago. And I also want to bring to your attention the fact that these T-pillars with their blocks on top here are very reminiscent of the Moai and their red hats. The T-pillars and the Moai. The T-pillars at Gobekli Tepe that are 11,500 years old, and the Moai that are 1,000 years old or younger. Now, more important is these arms on the T-pillars with the fingers coming together at the belly button above a belt buckle. And this one happens to have a rabbit sash here. You can see the rabbit feet and the tail, or maybe it's a fox. But it's certainly fingers in the front of the T-pillar, right above the buckle near the belly button. And the same thing is happening here to some of the larger basalt moai, have the same fingers right at the belt buckle that the T-pillars have, that look just like the moai in shape. The odds of this being a coincidence are 0. There is no mathematician that would ever agree that these two phenomenon are not directly related. Because they are. Because I believe that the basalt moai are from around the same time, at least 12,000 years ago, based on the depth of burial and the weathering patterns that we'll get to. Now, here are some of the more interesting bas reliefs from Gobekli Tepe, including a jaguar, hyena with like electric feet, a boar, and other completely amazing three-dimensional carvings from a single stone 11,500 years ago. But what's more important is this pillar. This pillar at Göbekli Tepe has been deciphered to show that these people were archaeoastronomers. They knew the celestial heavens. They knew the constellations, for goodness sakes. And this even dates. This pillar here is suggesting a date of around 12,900 years ago for an event that happened. And here you can see a bird or a vulture maybe holding what appears to be the sun or maybe a comet. And the reason we're bringing this to your attention is because there are also 3 birds on the back of the moai, with some other stuff right above it here that's like up and down. Notice that? And the 3 birds? It's the same exact picture. 3 birds and this wavy pattern. Now, the odds of this matching a T-pillar or being similar across a span of 10,000 years is impossible. So whoever erected Gobekli Tepe knew the same people that were on Easter Island, thousands of miles away in a different ocean. That is mind-blowing. Now, what else is mind-blowing is the weathering patterns. We're going to come back to one of the basalt figures, Hoa Hakananaya. This is one of the moai made of basalt. And I want you to look at the weathering on the surface of this statue, made of basalt. You can see that the surface is not smooth, it's pitted and pocked. And this is what would happen over thousands of years if left in the elements. This is a 3,000-year-old Egyptian statue made of basalt that shows absolutely no weathering in 3,000 years. Here is another blown to smithereens and put back together basaltic statue from 3,000 years ago, showing no weathering. And another basalt carving, and another, and another. And here's a piece of an obelisk that's 3,400 years old that shows no weathering in the carving. And this obelisk was brought to France in the late 1800s, which shows no weathering. And then there's the black obelisk of Shalmaneser III, which is made of black limestone. This is also 3,000 years old, and limestone weathers 10 times faster than basalt, and this pillar shows very little weathering. But yet this basalt Moai, especially the back, shows a lot of weathering. And the amount of rounding off and weathering on the back of this Moai would have taken thousands of years if left outside. 10,000 plus, in my opinion. So what's going on here? Here's the back and the weathering. Look at how weathered it is. This used to be a bas-relief sticking up. This looks like more of the same triple bird motif, and then those lines. And then these creepy dudes that are throwing up or something. Now, the official narrative on what these carvings are, according to the archaeologists, they said that these were put on recently due to some activity of a bird cult. But they didn't take into account that this is some of the deepest weathering on all the Moai on any of the features, these carvings, which would make these carvings the oldest part of the statue, if anything. And remember, this is basalt, one of the hardest rocks around, and we have evidence that even 3,000-year-old statues, statuettes, and carvings show no weathering from Egypt. But they want us to believe that the Moai are 1,000 years old or less. Completely nonsensical. And we've laid out our case, and we're sticking with it. What do you guys think? Leave your comments below, and maybe we'll do a follow-up podcast. But that certainly is a boom to knowledge. I don't know why there's not more critical thinking in archaeology. The only reason I can think is because the storylines are set, and modern archaeologists are trying to just fit their discoveries in with the storylines. It's just bad science. Be safe. We love you. That's a boom.